Aim high, shoot far, aim for the moon. If you miss, you'll hit a star. Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Better Together, sharing our lupus stories. And tonight, I want you to calm your mind. I was going to get a glass of tea for this, but you can grab a glass of tea. I want you to sit back, enjoy that cup of tea, spritz a little lavender in the air, and take in tonight's show. And the attitude for the day is I may have lupus, but I am not my lupus. Okay? All right, we're here to educate you, offer holistic and mental health alternatives and solutions. And we're going to encourage you to ride through the drama that's too often thrown in our direction by the medical community. So, in my spoken word later in the broadcast, I'll tell you a story of courage from living my life with lupus. And we're going to talk a little bit about speaking up for this body. That's a line that you're going to hear a little bit later. So tonight's topic is how to build your healthcare team and why and who do you need on your team. And I'm living my best life, Loopy. So pardon me if it's a little spotty at all. I am actually, part of me living my best life is my art. As a poet, I have Urban Word, the organization that serves youth that I lead. And then I have this platform to share your stories because you encourage me to. And I bring you greetings from the French Alps. I am in France right now. And although I spent the first day really taking time to make sure my body adjusts to the time change and dealt with the mini flare fatigue that I had from the flight, I am doing great. And we know this is not always our reality. So I am giving so much gratitude for good health. I'm here and I hope that inspires you to do something or go somewhere this year if you can, okay? Well, we have exciting guests lined up. Some old and new friends are joining us this evening with words of power and encouragement and wisdom. And we know we must advocate for ourselves, and we could all use a little help doing so. Tonight, you got it. Now we have Dr. Michaela Baird, and you're here, you're on board, you're out there walking with us, working with us, and first of all, you're almost working every day in this system, supporting people living with lupus. You do go home, right? I feel like you're always at work.
So I do go home, Chanel. But first of all, I want to say I'm so glad you're in Switzerland and enjoying your time there. Good for you.
Thank
I
you.
do go home. I'm blessed to come home to a partner and my 2-year-old son. I have a dog, so I try and run home. I ran home before the show today. And it's a lot, but we all hold these titles at work and at home. For me, it's wife and mom and sister and daughter. But I think that, what helps me get through my day is really having a team that helps me out. And, when I think about work and taking care of the people that I serve and the community that I serve, it's really having a team of physicians that help me out. So, when we start to talk about building a support team, it's not just for the person living with lupus, it helps the whole team. It's helpful for your physician who's taking care of you, really. And I'm sure you've probably seen that play out, Chanel.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, I see more than one doctor. I've seen quite a bit. I have a hematologist. I have my regular rheumatologist. I still see my primary care physician. I have a dentist. I have, because some of our medications can affect bone density, and I have to make sure my teeth are fine because I love my smile. Okay. So definitely, this idea of having so many different people on this lupus path with you is so important.
It is. And I mean, you mentioned a lot of the people I think about when I'm trying to work with someone to build out that team. You mentioned a hematologist. They can be so helpful for you if you're managing anemia or low blood cell counts. Dermatologists, really helpful, as rheumatologists don't know everything. They don't know all of the perfect medications to use, and especially something so specialized like taking care of someone's skin. The dermatologists help out so much. The kidney doctors, we'll talk to Adrian later, and I know, some of our viewers deal with kidney involvement with their lupus. So it's really important that you have a good kidney doctor on your team. And you mentioned primary care doctors, and sometimes when someone gets a rheumatological diagnosis, they want to hand everything over to their rheumatologist, but we still really need the primary care doctor as a part of that team. So I think a big way of advocating for yourself is really figuring out who is in the team that you need as a person getting care, and making sure that you're taking care of your lupus.
But no, thank you, and I appreciate, because yeah, I know sometimes it's very hard when you're seeing all these specialists to think about the doctor that's just like, hey, let me check your blood pressure. You're like, oh, my lupus is acting up. That's all I care about.
Of
You're
course.
not thinking about the other things that can come up that are just regular things to check for. So I
Mhm.
know that one other thing that is really, really challenging for a lot of people is really making sure that they get quality care on their team.
Right.
And so I know that I think it's so important to advocate for yourself. Like I know
Mhm.
that that's something that I speak for, but I'm just curious, as a medical professional, what does advocacy look like when it comes to dealing with you and your cohort, your colleagues?
My colleagues, that's a really good question. I mean, I think that when I'm talking about advocating for, myself and the healthcare team, it's kind of really explaining what my role is. And that's the same thing we want our patients to do, kind of explain what our expectations are, explain what our needs are, explain how we want to be communicated to. So, I'll call my, dermatology colleagues and say, after so and so sees you, I really want to know updated, what your plan is for them. Or maybe you could give me a call if someone's really sick to let me know exactly, what our next steps are, or to talk about what decision we want to make together. So it's really important that we advocate, as physicians, for getting information, but it's what I tell my patients to do, to come to visits, with an idea of what they want out of the visit, because you can really guide it. If there's a specific symptom that you want to focus on, if you need guidance about what other team member to bring onto your healthcare team, you can really lead that discussion.
That's helpful to really actually think about what I need from the moment I walk before I walk in. I think sometimes I'm
Definitely.
coming in, and especially with lupus, it's so annoying how I can have symptoms all week long, and for some reason, the moment I set foot in that doctor's office, they all disappear. And I feel like we might have mentioned that on a previous show. I think that might have been the lemonade maker Monique that might have mentioned that maybe in the earliest show, but it's something that's real. So coming in already knowing what's going on and what we need, that's so important. Now, question, if we aren't getting what we need, what should we do? Like if I feel like my rheumatologist is not present, and I've been through that before.
Mm.
I've switched rheumatologists before. But what do you think we should do?
I mean, we're people, and you click with different people. You have connections with different people at different times. And so, a provider who you don't feel like you're connecting with, or maybe they're going, through some changes in their office, or they change locations, then it's okay to find someone else. It's okay to keep looking for a different provider and see if there's someone else that you feel you mesh with better at that time. And I think that, maybe people are afraid that as physicians we take it personally, but we want you to have the best care. So I'd rather know and be able to share everything that I've learned about you working with you with the next doctor, and pass that information on.
No, that's helpful. And thank you for helping us navigate how to navigate that. Because a lot of times I think we think it's something scary, or it's like a breakup, you don't want to make anyone feel like, tag, I swear you were good, just not good for me. Like we want to try to find a
You're
nice
not
way to say
wrong.
that.
Finding a good doctor can be a little like dating.
Well, we're gonna go into some of our guests right now. We have quite a few people in the building who are amazing. We have another clinician on the show this evening that you're gonna hear from, Lillian Mendez. who's the Senior Program Associate of Charla de Lupus, an amazing organization that does work primarily people living with lupus that are children and young people. Because I think we think of it as adults, but there are definitely young people they have different needs. And we talked about that in previous shows. I'm trying to get all of you to go back into the crates and make sure you go and see the other episodes that you might have missed. Okay. But Tanya, we also have a clinician, Tanya Fryrich. She is the lupus dietitian that is here and going to be able to talk with you. She's been on a previous show and we decided to have her back when we were talking about team building. We also have Tony Fowler Dougler, lupus warrior and host of In Her 50s podcast. Adrienne Nicole is also here. She is our lupus advocate and team builder. And these two ladies have designed dynamic medical teams for themselves over the years, and they share their stories with us to help other lupus patients like us do the same thing. So welcome. We have a full house. I'm welcoming everybody into the building, into the virtual building. So glad to have you all here. Yes. Corey's here.
Hi.
Hello. So glad to have you all here. So we're going to have a great conversation about this, and we're just hanging out. But I'm going to start with you, Adrienne. So can I ask you, over the years, how often have you had to adjust your medical team?
Oh my. So I've been diagnosed since 2009. And so I've gone through quite a few physicians, healthcare providers. I would say I've adjusted it maybe every several years. I might pick up a person and like drop a person or so. But my team is quite vast. I have a rheumatologist, a cardiologist, a gastroenterologist, an ophthalmologist. Like, so there are so many people, but I have to connect, work with someone that I'm connecting with and someone who I feel like is really taking care of me and is hearing me. And that requires change every now and again.
It's such an important point too, Adrienne, like someone who's really hearing you. I think that's so important to be able to recognize.
Yeah, for sure.
No, and when you were first diagnosed, did your medical experiences differ then than today? Like how have you changed over the years?
Absolutely. Yeah. At the beginning, I didn't know anything, right? So I didn't really know anything about lupus. So I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know how I should feel at the doctor's office. I mean, at that point, I'd only gone to, like PCPs, and it's like, yeah, just do blood pressure. Let's check your cholesterol and all of that. Now we're at a whole nother level. So I actually had my feelings hurt by my first rheumatologist because I wanted her to feel bad for me, right? Because I was feeling bad for myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I don't know what to do. And she's like, kind of like, buck up, you'll be fine, right? And I'm like, this is, I don't like this. I need someone to baby me. And I like immediately fired her and went to someone else. And after getting some experience in having lupus and understanding what she was really saying, I ended up getting rid of the rheumatologist that I went to and going right back to her because she truly was trying to push me to live life and not to sit back on my laurels and then feel bad and go into some abyss of feeling sick. So it's been a road. It's been a road.
It's so interesting you say that because, my question is really actually for Tanya, because she's a clinician as well as a lupus patient, but this idea of your healthcare needs evolving, like how have you seen this play out? Because, Adrienne spoke to that, but I think it's true for everyone.
Yes, definitely. So I've also seen from the side of a patient. I was diagnosed with my first autoimmune disease when I was 12 years old. So I was going through as a kid and then as a teenager and having conversations of, okay, can I drink alcohol? Like now I'm in my 20s. Is that okay?
Right.
And again, through I want to become pregnant. Is that okay? And having different needs at different times, Adrienne, which I think is to your point, like it is a little bit dating. First, you have maybe a relationship that's not the best fit, and then you have another one that they're kinder, but maybe too much of a nice guy. Anyway, you kind of go back and forth. And as a practitioner, now I see it with my clientele where perhaps they want a more holistic approach, and they're finding a doctor that's like, no, we just need to keep adding medications. And they're like, oh, wow, this isn't a great fit. Like, I need someone to address those other concerns of mine. So it's a process for everyone.
Yeah. Tony, what are your thoughts on this? When did you first find out you had lupus, and how do you manage your team?
I was officially diagnosed at age 39. I'm 51 now, but I have very vivid memories of being sick as a child. Leaving home, I'm perfectly fine. I get to school and it's like death have warmed over in the hour. And my mother was a nurse. So I always was seen by her peers. I always went to the hospital she worked. She picked my pediatrician, she picked everything. And when I would have these complaints of pain and all of this other things, I'm 6'3", and I've been 6 feet since the 5th grade. So they would say, oh, it's growing pains. You'll grow out of it. Or, I grew up in a Caribbean household. They would tell me I didn't do enough that day to be in pain. Like, why are you in pain? You're being lazy. So for years, I just stopped saying anything. And finally, at 39 years old, I had the lupus butterfly rash. This rash was horrific. It was all over my face. And I went to the dermatologist, and immediately she told me what it was. I had never been diagnosed. I didn't know what she was talking about. So when I went to the rheumatologist and my PCP, they just, well, what's your pain level? They gave me a pain pill. Oh, well, you need this pill. Oh, you have a migraines? Let me give you this. Oh, your iron is low? Let me give you some iron. It was just take this pill, take this pill, take this pill. I was bloated, I was in pain, and I felt awful. And everything changed for me when I relocated from the DC area to Georgia. My insurance changed. I had to find a brand new doctor. And I dumped all of this in his lap day one. And I was like, make it better. Wow. And he asked me, what do you want? How do you want to proceed? And he told me, if you're looking for a doctor that's just going to push pills, get another doctor. I'm not him. And from day one, he never treated me like I was sick. He always told me that I can live life despite lupus. And we started from there.
So it seems like you did a lot to find the right provider.
A lot. And honestly, when I found him, it had to be God, because I literally opened up the catalog at work and said, okay, he's in my area, I'll call him. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know the area. I didn't have any suggestions. I just picked one out of the book and I made a good choice. I've been with him now 9 years.
Wow. So you must have worked on building that relationship, even though you were lucky to find someone you clicked with from the beginning. What are some of the success tools you would share with people?
One of the things he told me day one was that anytime I felt anything, no matter how small I thought it was, he needed to know. He signed me up under this thing called My Chart. So all of the doctors I had all used My Chart. So it wasn't up to me to try to remember what happened, what medications they gave me. They literally all signed into My Chart, and they could see everything that happened. They could see what the previous doctor notes said, and it just worked. And for me, I was able to kind of pinpoint a little bit when I would feel discomfort, and I realized a lot of it came from the foods I was eating, dairy and certain vegetables that I'm thinking is okay, and it was really working in the opposite for me. So those were some of the steps I took. I had to keep a journal, I had to keep a water diary, I had to do all of these things. I had to do the work, but with me doing the work, he was very open and, able to work with me.
Sounds like there was a lot of give and take in that relationship.
Yes.
So you have a podcast in your 50s, and
Yes.
how has that helped you to manage, your life and your lupus?
Well, for me, because I'm 51 now, so in addition to dealing with everything lupus, I'm also dealing with menopause. That's something we forget. I'm like, wait a minute, something else. And most of my circle are in their 50s, and it was just a lot of things we were not talking about. And I just decided to put it out there, and that's how it's helped. And along with my therapist, I am in therapy. I'm proud of it. I went from weekly sessions to bi-weekly sessions, now to monthly sessions. And my therapist has been the best thing ever. She literally gave me the encouragement and the empowerment to always advocate for myself, to always get those accommodations from my physicians to take to my employer. I always thought FMLA was for when you have a baby. I didn't know I can use it if I needed to work a half day or work from home or have the overhead lights adjusted or even have a heater, just whatever I needed to make me comfortable. She pretty much gave me those tools to speak up for myself.
And that's so helpful. I think the fact that you literally have outlined so many members of your team, which I don't think we all think about, and everything from thinking about your food, which I know Tanya is like, yay, like, hey, shout out food. That's right. But really just having that team and have therapy there. And we've talked about this, and that's such an important member of the team there. But you also talked about like the resources that are important, the My Chart, the things of that nature, like those other resources that we're not always aware of. And some hospital systems, for those that are out there that don't know, some hospital systems actually have the opportunity where all the different doctors, if they're under the same medical team or medical hospital system, they tend to share that information. And that's something that maybe people don't necessarily know. So thank you for bringing that to light and for bringing that up, because we don't think about that. And these other resources like FML, Family Medical Leave, we think that, like you said, we don't know these resources exist. And a lot of times these different people that are a part of our teams are helping us figure out all of those different pieces of the puzzle. And lastly, you talked about menopause and OBGYN. Like we don't think about what's going on down there until it's, until we're ready to do something down there and have a baby, or not, or whatever that might be, right? So what does it mean to make sure we're following up on all of these people? That's so important. Thank you for sharing that. And Tanya, I have to, your role as a dietitian, how much do you see yourself being a part of a team as opposed to just a dietitian?
I think it's really important. And Tony brought up a good point of that communication with My Chart. So because lupus patients, anyone with a chronic illness, you see so many specialties, it's really hard to get everyone on the same page. So for my clients, oftentimes if they want me to, I'll send a fax to their rheumatologist of, hey, this is what we're working on. These are the things that they've seen improvement on, so that we have those lines of communication, because I agree, it's so important. One patient chart that all the doctors can access is amazing, but even just printing out the records, bringing it to the other specialties if they're in different systems, can really help improve someone's care so much.
Yeah, I think that's an important point from the healthcare provider role. I think that when you're advocating for yourself, you're actually really helping your clinician and your healthcare team to do better, because I think we really need to just see it as all of us really in the same space and on the team together. It's not always just the providers and the patients. We're all kind of working to get the information and share the best details to make the right decisions.
Yes.
Definitely.
And think about all this, Adrienne, when you were putting this team together, how did you manage that? Like the doctors being different places, and were you someone that brought those things together? Did you have to call doctors and let them know what was going on? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so early on, I don't know if My Chart existed. I don't believe it did. And so, but if it did, I certainly wasn't using it at the time. It was old school. I had to pick up the phone and call. I was initially admitted into the ER, and that's how I ended up getting a proper diagnosis after being admitted. And so I kind of picked up in the ER. I picked up, well, not in the ER, but in the hospital system, I picked up my rheumatologist and my nephrologist. And, and I saw a hematologist and a couple other people while I was there. So I've actually kept the same nephrologist from day one. He's amazing. Wow. I love him, and I do not want to ever let him go. I begged him not to retire. So, but what I had to do was literally just create like a document, and I had to go old school and make sure that I'm seeing who I need to see. I typed, put things in my phone. I need to see my rheumatologist. I need to see my nephrologist. I need to see this dermatologist. I need to see my, ophthalmologist. I have issues with my eyes as it relates to lupus. So it was old school. And now that my chart is here, it's amazing. And, and in New York, out because of the systems have come together, I have a physician, one physician in another hospital system. My core group, the rheumatologist and nephrologist, are in the same system. But everyone can see everyone's records now. And so it is amazing. I no longer have to bring copies, or like Tanya said, have someone fax something over to somewhere else. I am aware that all systems do not have this luxury, but it has really improved my health. Even in visiting, I went to see my cardiologist 2 weeks ago, and she said, "Oh, you see so-and-so." And I see this is what happened at the last visit. And it was just wonderful to not necessarily have to repeat myself or forget something that I said at another specialist. And now everyone can work together a lot more cohesively. So not old school anymore.
I can't agree with you enough, Adrian. It's so helpful. But, for those of us who don't know, my chart's an electronic, health system where you can see all the records of all the doctors and healthcare providers that you see all in one space, in one electronic medical health record. So for people who don't have that, and this question's for all of you, what was in that physical document you used to carry around from visit to visit?
I actually had a thumb drive. That's how big my file was, because I went years undiagnosed. So every emergency room visit, every complaint, everything was on a thumb drive.
Wow. Adrian, what was on yours? And Tanya, you as well.
Yeah, so I had the specialist type, that person's name, what medications I was on based on who prescribed me that particular drug. And I also just had symptoms. I would have everything that I sort of like reported to that particular individual, so that I could then take that to the next place. But it was not convenient at all.
I'm one of those people that likes to color code things and put it in folders and have labels. I'm one of those people. So I would have a binder, and then the different colors for each specialty doctor. And then I would ask, can you print me out my visit summary, my labs, and your note? So then when I go to my next appointment, it's all in my binder. I can just show them, here are the most recent labs, because I've, just like Tony, I moved, I changed jobs, I've changed doctors so many times at this point. I went from peds to adults that I needed something that I could just physically grab. But I agree, electronic medical records, so much safer for everyone, because people sometimes forget really important things.
Yes, y'all are so much better than I am, because I know I literally am just like, oh, I remember somebody said my INR was 2.5. I try to do it from memory, and I think that's really important. And also, I think for me, what was helpful, speaking of other things, a lot of times the medical the doctor, when you do your blood work, a lot of those places do hold those files. So that's the one thing that I've always been good at, like keeping track of, like what did my blood work say. And sometimes like with my I have everybody use the same one, so that's been really really helpful in logging into places like Quest and all the different other ones that do your blood work, and they keep track of it and they have it on file for quite some time. So that's been my saving grace. Is like I might not remember what I told them happened last week on my chart, but here's what my blood work said. So that's just my help. That's my way. I will move up and step up in color code one day. I need to get to that level, or flash drive it. I think you're moving into the future, Tony. You're like, it's all data.
So all our guests have been sharing how they have been really keeping their medical team on task. And we wanted to share a little bit about what hospitals are doing to make a difference, becoming a part of the solution to building a strong medical team. And we don't have Lillian Mendez here with us, but she's a representative of the Charlotte de Lupus program, as Chanel was saying, at Hospital for Special Surgery. And she's going to share with us a little bit about some of the programming they do there.
Hi, everyone. Hi. I'm happy to be here today. I'm so happy to see you all here. I'm Lillian Mendez. I'm the Senior Program Associate for Charlotte de Lupus at Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City. Charlotte de Lupus is the program that we have in the hospital and is a unique program, national program offering people with lupus and their families peer health education and support in both English and Spanish since 1994. Dr. Bayer is amazing. I am so happy I met Dr. Bayer. I can count the doctors that I've met on both hands because there's a lot of amazing doctors, but she's one of them. Dr. Bayer, I met her at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. And she's, from the minute that I met her and the way she treats the patients, I noticed that she was unique. I noticed how she treated her patients and I noticed how she cared for them. One thing that I want to say is for all people who are suffering from lupus is that, never give up. Always have hope because tomorrow is not promised to you. Everyone with lupus is different, Me, when I wake up, I just thank God every single day because of him, I would not be here. So I'm happy to wake up and service you. So one thing I say is never give up. If you're going through depression, if you're going through situations that you can't handle, if you're going through pain, I understand that. I understand that going through pain, going through depression, waking up like one day you feel fine and the next day you're not. People tell you, hey, you look fine, like right now. But you know what? 2 days ago, I wasn't feeling well. So one thing I want to say is that never give up. There's always hope. Because if you give up, you will never see what tomorrow brings for you. So just hang in there. And if you need the support, you can always call me. So I want to say thank you, Dr. Bayer. You are such an amazing person. And I keep saying amazing, but that's how I feel about you. And thank you so much for making a difference. Thank you so much for serving the lupus community. Thank you so much for who you are. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yes. So we have Lillian Mendez. That's a whole line that you can actually tune into from Charla de Lupus. And if you ever have any struggle, definitely type in Charla, which means to chat in Spanish. Charla de Lupus, talk for lupus. So if you want to look that up, make sure you check it out. Lillian is super accessible, and so are the members of her team. And yes, we know we agree with her. Dr. Michaela Baird, you are amazing. And we're so lucky to have you in this space. See, look, I told you changing lives out here.
You guys are flattering me too much, and Lily's going to make me cry because she met me when I was a young rheumatologist and meeting people, diagnosing people with lupus, and I wanted to spend all day with them. And so I felt so much better because she was someone I could send people to who'd really take that time that I couldn't spend, talking more about the diagnosis. So I think that that's a great example of how you can find people on your medical team. And as a provider, I need some other people on my medical team to help me treat people well.
And I think it's really important, like organizations, how they can serve those other roles. They're not necessarily all doctors or clinicians, but they definitely support and fill in some of those gaps that I know for me, when I was diagnosed with lupus, I was away upstate in college and my rheumatologist was back in New York. And so 4 hours away, who do I talk to when I'm going through something? And I found a support group and it was really, really helpful to be around a bunch of people. It wasn't the most diverse support group. I will say that I was the only person of color and the only person under 40 in my support group. But it was like, wow, I know that I can live to be 40, like that was helpful. And being able to talk to people that were where I was or that knew others that were living with what I was dealing with, it was really, really helpful. So yeah, definitely. I think these kind of like organizations are really important to give some of that TLC that sometimes our doctors can't give us. And so, yeah, I'm just curious, any other thoughts came to mind for anybody else in the room after seeing that around, these other support systems, or even some of the comments she said. I think she said some really, really powerful and encouraging things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, aside from physicians, right? Part of my care team, I consider my friends and family to be part of the care team. And I know who I can turn to, who I can call when something isn't going well, or even just making sure I incorporate it as part of my wellness. Like, I do Saturday brunch every Saturday with my mom and my sister. That's part of my wellness, and having a good time, spending time with family, surrounding myself with people who will hold me accountable to the dietary changes I've made. If I try to pick up a piece of chocolate or, start looking at some dairy, someone might say, hey, wait a minute, that's not the thing. And so it's critical to have that, like a masseuse, like just someone who can, yes, Chanel.
I love a masseuse,
right,
massage therapist.
Yes, we experience pain, and so it's critical to have all of these other pieces be a part of our solution.
What has your experience been with support groups, or either Tanya or Tony? I mean, I didn't even think about what you were saying, Chanel. Just seeing other people in different stages in life was powerful.
Well, for me, especially when I was diagnosed, I'm the only one in my family that has lupus, and I was the only one in my circle that had lupus. So I always was advocating and bringing awareness because everyone around me had 100 questions. So that's how my blog started. That's how I started speaking on social media and all of these different things, because honestly, I was just tired of telling the same story 100 times. So I just remember I had a large platform in the natural hair community, and I did a blog post that said, I'm naturally loopy. No, my name at the time was All Natural. I'm All Natural and I have lupus. And everybody was like, what? What is that? So, my daughter was like 10 years old at the time. I had to take her to every appointment so she could remember what I couldn't remember. So my immediate family, between my daughter, my son, my ex-husband, those were my immediate support people. But then after I started, speaking on social media, I gained a lot of, as I call them, my loopy chicks. We all had that same thing in common, and the men and the different people that I met online. And honestly, for me, just those little comments, oh, your skin is beautiful today, Diva, you looking good today, I would just be on cloud 9, like, oh my gosh, this was such a, self-esteem boost. And even working out, I'm like, I can't do that, that hurt. But I found a trainer that understood somewhat about lupus. So he knew what to do, how to help me, how to get me moving and going. And I just thank God that the people that I had around me, one, never treated me like I was sick. They did not get mad at me because I flaked out on plans. 1 minute you fine, the next minute you can't. And just always having the support of my children and my now ex-husband, was very, very helpful and beneficial for me.
And that's so helpful. I think, that you recognize the family members and the people that are not looking at you as if you were sick, and just seeing you for who you are. That's definitely important too, to have those folk too. Tanya, anything standing out to you for around the support systems around you?
Yeah, I've always had a very supportive family, and that's been amazing. And I was diagnosed with lupus, so that was my last autoimmune disease when I was dating my now husband. And he was helping me through all that when I could not get myself dressed in the morning, when I couldn't open doorknobs, when I had to come home from work and lay in bed. Which is why I married him. Obviously, he's a good one. But I think, to your point of struggling with that support group, that's one like tiny silver lining of COVID, is that I feel like now there's so many online and virtual that people can really, for all of you listening out there, you can find your group where you really feel like, wow, these are people going through the exact same thing in terms of life stage, experiences, and that can really be such a difference to have that support too.
Yes.
And I definitely know. Thank you so much. That's such an important point. There's so many resources, and way more than when, I was diagnosed in 2004, and a lot of these resources didn't exist back then. And now we're really being more connected in the present times through social media, through digital spaces, through Zoom, and that's really, really helpful. I know for me, and I just want to shout out those of us out there that don't feel like we have a support system. A lot of times I've felt like I've had to do lupus on my own. And I just want to make sure I bring those folk in the room and know that you're not alone that way. And that, yeah, these are ways that we can actually find those tribes, that tribe that might be able to support us through the things. Because, yeah, some of the people that I know, Adrian, you're one of them, has been people that I've, always know that if anything, if I ever needed, and whether I take them up on it or not, if I ever needed anything or wanted somebody to be a listening ear, would be a great listening ear. And so, yeah, definitely encourage you all to look at all of the resources that are there. And I know that one space that supports, and there's so many different foundations and other nonprofits and other organizations across the country that are doing this work. Just have to highlight the Lupus Foundation of America. They're one of the larger foundations that does this work, and I'm very much connected to it in a lot of different ways. And they've created a toolkit to actually help us manage our healthcare teams better, and it's called SELF. Easy to remember, SELF, Strategies to Embrace Living with Lupus Fearlessly. Okay, that is an acronym. All right. Now, SELF is about supporting you being your best self. No matter how long you've been living with lupus, the SELF online self-management program, it has the tips, the tools to help us better manage our disease. So as you can see here, SELF is right here. And this is the actual site that you can go to and see this. It's a virtual coach that can help you find the calm you need when you need it most. It helps you with managing lupus symptoms, managing stress, being able to navigate and manage your medications, putting it somewhere, and also helping you work with your healthcare team. So these 6 major components remind you that you are not your lupus, that you are in control, okay? And the first headline is, they're talking about why this is a helpful thing. It's tailored to you. You can actually curate the different things, the different elements of the program itself, of the needs that you need, right? And you also get to feel in control of your lupus. You are managing your team. You are managing all the people that are around you and helping you figure out what you need to do to reduce some of your symptoms. You are in the driver's seat. You get to be able to create and curate what this looks like. You decide. What will all of the management tools, how will they work in your favor? It's pretty convenient. It's another way that you can keep and manage everything. So maybe you don't have to have a flash drive everywhere. Maybe this is another tool. Once again, we're giving tools here. That's the whole purpose of this series that we do with you all. It's another way to communicate. You can learn how to talk about your needs with your doctor. And I know that's something that a lot of us struggle with. And last but not least, personalized support. Your text messages, you can actually get some health, some self-care tips, some different suggestions, and of course, some support. So self is definitely a way to really, really help with some of this. And I'm curious to ask our guests, what are, you all, after reading that, what are the ones that stand out to you? What are the things that I guess you think are really important for us to have access to when it comes to support? You take a look
For
at
me,
these are so many bullet points. There's 6 bullet points, but
I was going to say for me, just having the resources and know that someone or a group of people is available to help, and it's really helpful and encouraging when that group and that support is already, familiar and aware of the disease and some of the hardships that a lot of us experience. I've been to different, support groups, and it just wasn't the right one. I remember when I was first diagnosed, there wasn't really much going on with lupus. So they were sending me to support groups and pain management groups and all of this stuff for people with arthritis. Not quite the same. So having support from people with lupus or people that are educated regarding lupus, for me, that is a big one.
I think being, in the driver's seat is what's really critical, right? To have a sense of being able to guide your care is critical, right? It's just like, I don't want to always feel like someone else is making a bunch of decisions for me. I want to be a part of that process and need to be a part of that process. I need to understand what's happening, and I am the one who knows how I feel best. So it is, my job to communicate that. So having that as part of the tool is really important.
I agree. And I think not only with this toolkit, but when people are thinking about eating healthier or moving their body more, joining a support group, these are all steps where they go from, Adrienne, where you were when you were first diagnosed, of like, like I need warm hugs right now, to like, okay, unfortunately, like your rheumatologist said, like, all right, we got to deal with this. So what do I do? And I think that transition can really give people feel empowered to advocate for themselves and feel as though, okay, there are things that I can control. This isn't happening to me 100%. I also can affect my lupus, which is such a different place of power.
Mm-hmm. You all have been speaking to your own, personal journeys, and I just wonder if some of you can share how things like this have helped you succeed, because you are the success stories right now. And, what about these tips kind of resonates with positive stories? Oh, I think you're muted.
That's a big question, Dr. Bader. I think, unfortunately, there is that transition that you just have to make of, okay, I have lupus. I've got to make the best of it. I'm going to live my life, which we all kind of mentioned in one way or another. And that has always really helped me because I've been living with autoimmune disease for so long. It's like, well, what choice do I have? I have to live. Like there's exciting things out there. Mm-hmm. So I think just taking it, because lupus, I mean, years and years ago, they were always the 80s, like soap opera, like, oh, the young woman, lupus. And then that was the end. And it's not like that anymore. And I think having that, okay, this is a diagnosis, it's on my chart, but it's not my full identity. I also can be this or that, or explore these other wonderful things that make me joyous and live life to the fullest. So definitely taking that and moving on with it.
And I just go back to the words of my mother before she passed. She always said to me, everybody has something. You are just going to have to figure out how to live with your something. And for me, my something was lupus. And I had to learn to speak up. I was in a place for a very long time. I didn't want people to know. I wouldn't tell anybody at work. It was so bad that I had a former employee, the coworker, she reported to HR that she thought I was in an abusive relationship because I was always in pain. I was always, moaning. So she thought I was in pain from being abused. So I get called out to HR. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, everybody's in there. And I had to tell them I had lupus because they was ready to send the police on whoever they thought was abusing me. But that experience, one, it taught me to just be vocal, not be ashamed. Like, this is my life. I had a position where I was in an executive office and we had to wear, suits and heels. I can't do that. I can't wear heels every day. I had a doctor's accommodation to wear flats or sneakers if I needed to. So there is assistance for us. I mean, I even go as far as anytime I travel, I always do late checkout. I can't rise early. I can't do all of the things to get out of here by 11 o'clock. It's not going to happen. So that's an accommodation that I need. I need late checkout. I need an accommodation at the airport. I need assistance. I cannot run from one side of the airport to the other side. Either I'm going to need a wheelchair or you guys going to have to wait. Wait for
Get
it.
those accommodations. That's super important. Thank you so much.
I love my accommodations. I will whip out a note for everything. I need a heater. I need late checkout. And I'm going to need some assistance to get to the next gate.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, Tony. That's so important. This idea of being vocal about what you actually need. It's so important. And Adrienne, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was realizing that like other people's feelings aren't more important than me taking care of me and what I need to do to stay alive, right, and stay well. And that if that requires, for me, it required actually removing people from my life who were causing such incredible stress that I would be sick. And that's one of the hardest things to do. Some people who are very close to you, but at some point you just have to make a decision. And so I want to encourage everyone just to make the decisions that you need to make that make you a well person, even if it's going to hurt someone else's feelings. It sucks at the time, but you have to take care of you first.
Period.
Yes, Adrienne.
I mean, I think that you hit it on the head, Adrienne. It's that idea that what everyone's needs are different. And I think that's what we've been talking about today, that we have different needs. We have different medical teams that we're going to have. We're going to have different successes and things we need to keep working on. So that's why using tools like SELF, reaching out to support groups and resources, it's going to look different for everyone. But Chanel's probably sick of hearing me say this, but the one thing I always say about lupus, and I, teach the students I work with too, is it's different for everybody. It doesn't look the same for anyone. It's such a personal journey and experience. So I really appreciate all of you for kind of sharing your stories and your personal successes and how you're navigating medical teams, because it's informing me, and I know it's helping out all of our viewers. So we're going to start to close our show. We want you to remember to look for us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Keep sharing comments, reaching out, connecting with other lupus warriors. Chanel and I want to thank Biogen and remind you, if you are interested in additional information on lupus and clinical trials, please go to biogentriallink.com, and you should see that link below. So Chanel, and I'm sorry, participantrightstimeline.com is our new link. So thank you, Biogen. Chanel, what is the title of this evening's spoken word?
I just wrote, "You got this." And that's what's going to be the title. So I want to share this poem with you all. When the universe is spinning, when your limbs ignore your beckonings, when the pain is echoing through the hollow of your bones, when the doctors scratch their heads or tell you they don't see what you know you feel. Don't shrink away. Don't let anyone tell you not to raise your voice. Don't let them call your concerns complaints. You deserve to be heard. You deserve the soft response, empathetic words. Speak up for this body. If they refuse to listen, find another ear. You belong in spaces who validate your questions. See, you are worthy of supreme care. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow,
Thank you,
Chanel,
Biogen,
thank
and
you.
we'll see you next week, Tuesday.
Join us for our next webinar. It's going to be titled Valentine's Day Beauty Treats. So we have some treats in store.
Take care.